Jonathan, moving on. John wanted to talk about his harsh comments about one Dakota Rain Prescott, number 4 for the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys last night beat the Buccaneers 31-14. We'll get into Tampa side of things a little bit in a little bit, but we're going to cover the Cowboy side of things first. So, John, the floor is yours.
You know what, Brandon? You know what? You were right. I may have been on Tom Brady, but I was also betting on Byron Leftwich and Todd Bowles. I may have been on the Buccaneers. And in the process, I was betting against Dak Prescott. I was also betting against a much better Dallas team. When you watch that game, the only takeaway you can have is the Buccaneers are an 8-win team for a reason, whereas the Cowboys were so good without Dak because they have a great roster. I was also incredibly disrespectful to Mike McCarthy. And what Mike McCarthy has is two damn good coordinators in Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn. Kellen Moore had himself a great game. He was one step ahead, a grandmaster. Dan Quinn, good decision, having your number one corner, and Trayvon Diggs following Mike Evans the entire way. And what did Mike Evans do in the first half? Nothing. It was one of those typical Mike Evans duds you see every now and then during the season. And I was talking him up a few weeks ago. He had 200 yards against, I don't know who he had it against, but he had it against somebody on the Panthers secondary. Trayvon Diggs, phenomenal. Micah Parsons, 9 pressures. Dak Prescott, 4 touchdowns. We saw this against Philadelphia on Christmas Eve. 5 touchdowns, you're right, he had the rollout, get into the end zone. A great play call and a great execution there by Dak. Dak Prescott saved his best game of the season for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And for that, you have to give him a tip of the cap. Hats off to you, Dak, because as somebody that's went as far to call him Kirk Cousins 2.0, Kirk had himself a great day, Dak Prescott had an even better performance. Dak showed maybe those playoff narratives aren't quite true. And most importantly, Dak looked like a $40 million quarterback. So I'm going to sit back and eat my humble pie. In the meantime, I'm picking the Niners next week. I'm picking the Niners, man.
Oh, what a blow. Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, so going into Monday night, there were two quarterback performances that absolutely stood out amongst the rest. And that was, Brock Purdy, going off after struggling early against the Seahawks. And then, the team that I'm wearing right here, Danny Dimes, probably the best game of his career. And then Monday night happened. I didn't foresee this happening because I've also been critical of Dak Prescott against, pretty good defenses or in big moments. Feel like he can crumble. But in this one, he did the exact opposite. The Cowboys, he probably had the best performance among any quarterback that played this weekend. And not only that, it made me rethink how I feel about this Cowboys team. But that's the thing that's so worrisome for me. Is they can reel you in. They'll reel you in and then they'll chew you up and spit you right back out. And you just never know what you're gonna get week to week from this team. So while they looked absolutely fantastic and they have a glutton of weapons on the offensive side, and Micah Parsons, probably maybe a defensive player of the year this year on the defense, it makes you. I can't get comfortable with this team. While I was impressed on Monday night, what am I going to see from them on when is it? Sunday night? Right. So I just don't know what version of the Cowboys I'm going to get because, like I said, one week we see this team that should be competing for a Super Bowl. And then the next, we might get a week like what they had against the Washington Commanders in week 18. So I'm not going to drink the Kool-Aid and say, I'm all aboard the Cowboy train. No, I'm not there just yet. This is a big matchup and their best that they'll have all season this Sunday.
Nice, nice, nice. So Dak Prescott had what I like to call a shut y'all's mouth type of game. All right, where everybody was talking, they was chirping, they was saying Dak can't perform in the playoffs. Dak only got one win in the playoffs. Dak, oh, did you see him last year in the playoffs? He was terrible. It's one of the worst games of his entire career. Mike McCarthy, he ain't the guy. I was the one saying that too. You had Justin over here criticizing both coordinators, saying he doesn't really like them that much. You had John over here basically discrediting Dak to the end, calling him a system quarterback. How does that look now? How does that look now? So Dak, let's just peek into the numbers a little bit, right? Dak 25 of 33, and just flat out the first drive of the game had two drops, so two of those weren't even his fault. 305 yards passing, 5 total touchdowns, like John said, was sacked only once. Shout out the offensive line. They did a hell of a job, but Buccaneers pass rush, like I said, it was non-existent. And if I'm not mistaken, QBR is on a scale of one. It's either 0 to 100 or 1 to 100. 100 being the highest, obviously, right? Dak Prescott had a 96.5 QBR. All right. I just want to shout out a couple plays he made. The first touchdown to Dalton Schultz, where he was able to look off to the left, look the safety off, came back right. Dalton Schultz was open. He hit him. And then the second touchdown, I mean, John loves his off-platform throws, right? Justin, isn't that always what he's talking about? The off-platform throws, being creative, playmaking. And Dak Prescott doing his best Patrick Mahomes impression, huh? Rolling to it, getting flushed out to his left, off balance, going out of bounds. Touchdown, Dalton Schultz. And he had a couple of runs, especially one on third down. I think in the second quarter where he dove for the first down. Dak Prescott basically showing like I'm built for this. Like I'm ready to put my body on the line. His jersey and everything was all dirtied up by the end of the game. And that's what I love about Dak Prescott, is because it's in here, the intangibles about him. Like John said, basically from the first two drives of the Cowboys' offensive drives, Kellen Moore called a hell of a game. A shutout, especially like John alluded to, the rushing touchdown call. Chef's kiss, what a call. What a call. Nobody saw it coming. And Dak sold it perfectly, and he was able to just run in for a touchdown. Beautiful. The run game wasn't special, but it did what it needed to do, and it moved the chains, right? It kept the game going. It kept the clock going. And the recipe for success, there's that stat out there of Dak, winning more when he rush it, when they run the ball more. 35 rush attempts, 33 pass attempts. That's perfect. That's a perfect mix. Pollard, this kid, he's explosive, man. 5.1 a carry. He had that one, I think it was a run or it was a flick pass or something like that, where he was able to break a tackle on the sideline and make a couple of that. I mean, this kid, he's got the talent, man. And what I wanted to say, this is what the Los Angeles Chargers should have done. How the Cowboys played, how the Cowboys called the game. This is what you do when you have foot on throat. You don't relieve. You stomp down and end it. And that's what the Cowboys did. So all credit to Mike McCarthy, all credit to Kellen Moore, credit to Dan Quinn, hella credit to Dak Prescott. Credit to the offensive line, credit to the defense, who wasn't great. I thought they weren't great. I thought they were good. I didn't think they were great. I thought they were just something wasn't there. They were missing that extra something that I think early in the season they were a little bit better. It probably has to do with their corners and a couple of injuries here, but they were just missing that something extra. And listen, I'm telling you right now, they're going to need that something extra next week when they go against the San Francisco 49ers in that offense, especially in that offensive line. So, like I said, hats off. The only negative, we haven't even brought it up. Brett Maher, 4 missed PATs. That is, let me get this right. That is record most missed in playoffs since the 1930s. I forget the exact year they said, but I know it was the 1930s. That's not good to look at. The only bright spot, the only silver lining is that he made his last attempt and they gave him a little, and you're hoping. I know John can relate to this. I know you're hoping it's kind of like when a shooter, shooters just shoot. If you're over, keep shooting, and you just want to see the ball go in the net. That's all you want to see is the ball go in the net, and maybe that confidence will get rolling. So they're probably hoping and praying for that. They've said that they're going to stick with Maher. I think that's the right thing to do at this point, but they're going to keep a close eye on that. If he misses the first PAT or field goal in the San Francisco 4, he's done. He's done. They're going for 2 on basically all the time. They're not going to trust it. They can't.
He just needed a field goal, my man.
Listen,
That's why he.
the yips are a real thing, man.
Mm-hmm.
The yips
And
are
like
a
I
real thing.
wanted to say, kickers especially, they're such a mental. It's talked about all the time. It's
Mhm.
such a mental. When they miss one, you're confident. I mean, look at Billy Cundiff. Billy Cundiff was a pretty damn good kicker. Had that one miss, and then I remember that game when he played for Washington. When he was playing for Washington, he had like 6 or something missed field goals in the entire game.
Mhm.
I think he made his last one though, but it just changes your. It's such a mental sport because you miss it and you
Really
start
is.
thinking about it. You start racing and stuff. But it seemed like the team picked him up. They were all there for him. They were saying, "Listen, we believe in you, man," and hopefully that does enough for Brad Maher going in next week because they might need him. It might come down to it.
Yeah. Are you guys familiar with Rick Ankiel? Ever heard the name? Has it rung a bell?
No.
No.
No,
He was a pitcher for the St. Louis Cardinals back in the early 2000s, and he was an up and coming player. And then one day, he just lost it. He couldn't find the strike zone. Was airmailing pitches over the catcher, behind the batter. Just couldn't find the zone for nothing. And he quite in fact did have the yips. It's such a mental thing where you just lose, sight of your mechanics, and you can't just repeat the simple things where, the simple things just as throwing a ball straight becomes, you overthink it. You begin to think about how are you going to throw this ball or kick this ball. And eventually he had to, really restart his career. He stopped pitching and he actually went down to the minor leagues and transitioned to become a hitter. Beautiful story. But yeah, it's a real thing, and it's definitely something that eats at people. So I definitely hope that that's not the case. I hope I'm sure he's kicking a ton at practice, but nothing can simulate the real feeling of being right there in front of thousands of fans, 50 to 75,000 fans. Practice isn't going to do you much when you got to step in front of that with the game on the line.
And we should mention the record is, or I mean, the record, the curse has finally been broken for the Cowboys. I think it's 30 years since they won a road playoff game.
9 appearances on the road, and the
Shout
last
out.
time they did that, Brandon, it's your favorite gift. You use it all the time. The year of the "How about them Cowboys" so Jimmy Johnson in the locker room against the Niners in the Super Bowl. Now, I do want to add real quick to the Brett Maher discussion. Last year, he was 5-5 on his extra points. This year, he was actually the one who led the league in extra point attempts. When your teammate is struggling that much, probably what really symbolizes a great teammate the most is how you're there for your teammates when they're struggling.